Hi, my name's Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants. And today we're here with Geraldine of POV Pool, and we're here recording a Twilight episode on the Ivory Organics YouTube channel, as our schedules were busy this entire week during the work days. So here we are at night, sharing with you a few helpful repotting tips, specifically with her money plant that she's got as a house plant specifically for her, an office plant. And Geraldine's going to just share a few words about what is POV Pool and share a little bit about your company.
Sure. At POV Pool, we live stream and broadcast on the internet pool and billiards. We promote pool and billiards and players across the world.
Awesome. And what does POV Pool stand for?
Point of View Pool Media.
And how can viewers find POV Pool?
You can check out our website at povpool.com or our YouTube channel, where we have more original content than any other billiard channel in the world.
That's awesome. And I'll even put those links down below, and I'll even write them down in the comment for just to make it easier for people to find that. Do check them out. Ivory Organics has subscribed with them, and they're an awesome couple that provide great content relating to billiards, and they are a leading billiards YouTube channel, I believe #1 in the world, right?
Most original content.
Most original content in the world. They're a great couple. Check them out. And that's again with Geraldine and Daniel. And what brings you here today?
I have this money tree that I've inherited after someone who had it for a couple years, and I've now had it for 2 or 3 years. And in the last couple months, Charles gave me some fertilizer to try on my plant that was looking a little sad, and so I did, like a month or 2 ago, and now it's kind of overgrown itself and it's starting to droop because it's so heavy and there's so much foliage on it, and there's a few other issues with the plant.
That's awesome. And I'll even share some of those pictures you shared with me about 2 months ago, where the plant was yellow and stressful looking. And now you're telling me it's just getting too heavy and too big, and it's kind of outgrown its container. And we did a lesson just a couple of weeks ago where I shared 18 repotting tips, and it took about an hour and a half. And my goal is hopefully within 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to share my top 5 favorite lessons, and let's more closely examine the money plant that you've got, and then the lessons that we're going to do together. Cool. You ready? Well, let's get started. So here we are now with the money plant. Do you want to share with us the issues? If there's anything specific, hopefully we can share with the viewers.
If you can see, it's now starting to lean over, and actually the light source is on this side. So that's, the plant is reaching towards the light, and so you see a lot of leaves. However, now it's just getting top heavy. One of the other issues is there's this dead stem here, and there's one of these, what did you call them, sucker?
It's basically like a sucker branch that's coming off on the side over here as well.
And so those are my main issues.
Great. Another observation you shared with me before the video was, in addition to the sucker growth that's happening here on the side, you also mentioned that this one particular branch is pretty weak compared to all those other branches. And one of the observations I noticed is that this one is linked to this sucker growth, and by removing this sucker, it'll encourage the energy to go towards this weaker branch than it putting its resources lower on the tree trunk. So that's one of the things that we're going to address. Another observation as well is you've got all of these pruned ends, and these are perfect entryways for beetles and termites to enter the exposed wood, and that will further lead to potential entry of disease. And until these trunks can get larger and basically heal over all of those exposed wounds. So we're basically going to be using the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard product that will brush on and coat and protect those surfaces during that lesson. In regards to it being now top heavy and leaning in one direction, one good practice is to rotate the plant within your office. It's probably reaching in the direction of the light, so by rotating it, it might create a better balance structure. But what we're going to do today is stake it and try to create an upright position. So you'll leave with a more upright plant by the time we're done?
I didn't do that because this side was ugly because of this dead branch.
Yeah.
And this weak one.
And then it's typical for money plants to be braided like it is over here as well. And within it, one of the braids is dead, and all the way down to the root level, the ground level. And so we're gonna end up removing one of these braids. So there's 4 braids that are creating this money plant. We're gonna take this out all the way down to, again, the ground level, and then try to unbraid it out of the way so that it doesn't contribute also to rot within the plant. That's a perfect entryway for now beetles and termites to go into that rotten wood and then spread the disease to the other healthier branches. So it's a good practice to remove that as well. So those are just a few of the lessons, but let's get started with my tip number 1, which is starting with a good potting soil. So let's get started with that. So my first helpful tip, and again, this is only 1 out of 18, and I'm going to try to narrow it down to 5. So helpful tip number 1, start off with a good potting soil. Don't just use any amend, don't use your native soil, as a good potting soil is going to help retain the maximum amount of moisture, and it's also going to help with excellent drainage, which will help prevent any root rot with your plant. This here is one product made by Kellogg's, but a superior product in my experience has been using something like this, which is called Gary's Best Top Pot, which I got from the Laguna Hills Nursery in Santa Ana. And you can do some research on what some people are starting to create, and there's a lot of lecturers and professionals in the gardening world that are talking about what's known as a permanent soil, a soil that doesn't collapse upon itself. The difference, and let me just read the ingredients here on this particular product so you understand what I'm talking about, but the ingredients show hydrolyzed poultry manure, feather meal, kelp meal, bat guano, and ferrous sulfate. So the ferrous sulfate is adding ferrous as iron, and sulfate, the element sulfur to the mix, which are 2 beneficial elements to the soil. But all of those ingredients I read will eventually break down into practically dust, and the soil will end up collapsing upon itself. To the contrary, Gary's Best Top Pot, again, and it even reads the first sentence over here, Top Pot is specially formulated for permanent applications, and the ingredients, peat moss is an organic, but the majority of the ingredients in here are mineral, such as pumice and perlite and sand, and then it's also got charcoal, which breaks down very slowly. So the preferred product, and again, this being that it's less susceptible to collapsing within the container, is what we're going to use now as our potting soil. So I've selected now a pot with good drainage. I've got a nice drain hole here at the bottom, as you can see as I'm fitting my finger here through it. What we're going to do next is simply take a few stones, and we're going to try to block that whole some to prevent the soil from escaping when just simply put into the container. But these rocks and stones will simply serve as a filter to prevent the soil from leaching and basically washing out with each application of water. And now we're simply going to add about a ½ inch to an inch of soil at the bottom. And container wise, this here is the container that is within this decorative pot as it was resting on Geraldine's desk. So you can see this is the system that she has. This here is a waterproof container, and this one here is the container with the drain holes at the bottom. And as Geraldine shared, it's been at least 2 to 3 years on her desk, and she inherited it from somebody else. So I expect it to be a phenomenon known as pot bound, where the roots are coiled within the container. And let's go and take a look at that right now together. And if you take a look here at the roots, you can see that they're pressed pretty firmly against the sides of the wall. Typically, I would see coiling of the roots near the base of the structure, and if I just pull back, it's not as bad as I had expected. But the plant will benefit just based on the size of it to have a larger container than this small amount of soil that it's currently growing in. So what we're going to do is simply remove the moss, the decorative moss that's on top, and we can reapply that into the new container. What we're also going to do is remove the dead braid as well, which is right here. So we're going to come in now with our pruners, And again, we're going to carefully track this dead branch out with this braid. And here we go. We'll just basically prune it into a few smaller pieces. And here. And it's simply twisting out right there. And there we go. Now we basically have 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought there was only 4 braids. It was actually 5. And now we've got the 4 braids. What we're also going to do is remove the sucker growth here on the side. And that'll encourage the branch to push its resources and sugars up towards this inferior branch over here. So I'm basically now going to loosen the root ball to basically let the roots know that it's going from its smaller container into a slightly larger container. So we're simply going to just soften the soil around it. If there's any coiling, which now I'm starting to see it, we can go with our pruners and cut it out. And these roots are quite small, so I'm just going to go with my paper scissors now. And we can simply cut some of the smaller roots out of the way. And we're just going to continue waking up all of the roots on both the bottom as well as the sides as well. And now we can repot it, like so. We're going to add a little bit more soil at the top. We're going to backfill the sides with light pressure. And now the next step is going to be watering. So our next step is watering. And when it comes to watering, it's important to thoroughly water your potted plants. And if you're simply watering one side of the container, it's entirely possible that the water is passing from one side down through the drain hole and never watering the opposite side of the container. So it's important that when you water, you soak the plant, and one way to actually ensure that the potted plant is soaked is by putting it in a saucer and allowing it to rest in that saucer for a few hours, and then towards the end of the day you can dump the excess water out of the saucer, now knowing that the entire soil medium has been soaked. If I simply water like so, even though there's water all around it, again, the water can pass by so quickly, leaving a lot of dry spots within the container, and that won't count as a thorough watering, with the goal being that you want to make sure you soak the plant between waterings and then allow it to dry before you re-water your plant, but never bone dry. So the test would be to simply check the first inch or two of the soil to make sure that in fact it's dry. But again, you want to make sure that there's some moisture towards the bottom of the container, and that one not only supports the plant life, but also helps support this soil life too. So again, it's important to make sure there's some moisture in the soil between your waterings as well. But again, never allow the water to continuously be on your potted plant, as some people water their plants every day when it's not necessary, and that can lead to a phenomenon known as root rot, where the roots will simply rot just because of the excess moisture. So what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna create now a liquid fertilizer using the Ivory Organics 6 Macros product, and this is the only organic fertilizer I've seen on the market that offers the plants all of the 6 macronutrients plants need, which includes nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, sulfur, and calcium. So your plants are going to get all of the macronutrients. A 4-pound bag such as this can make 120 gallons of liquid fertilizer, and these smaller 11.8 ounce bags can make over 20 gallons of liquid fertilizer. And what we're going to do today is we're simply just going to take a tablespoon. I've got a gallon of water here in this container. We're simply going to take a tablespoon of the product and add it to the water, and we're simply going to use this fall mixing stick to mix the solution together. The directions recommend waiting about an hour before you then apply the product to the soil. You can also use it as a foliar feed to the entire plant, which we're going to be doing that as well. You can also filter the product and use it in your spray gun and basically spray all of your outside plants as well. Your citrus will love it, all of your tropicals will love it. It's a great way of getting a lot of the both macro and micronutrients into the plant. And it also has a lot of the beneficial microbes and mycorrhiza, which is the soil organisms that'll help also with the breakdown of the organic matter and maximize the uptake of elements to the plant, and again maximize the overall health and life of your plants, whether they be your house plants as well as your fruiting vegetables and fruit trees on your property as well. What I want to share with you next is I've prepared this container in advance. What we're going to be doing is putting this potted plant within this decorative container, which will be resting on our desk. If you take a look at the bottom of it, you may notice that I've attached, using this Gorilla Glue, 3 marbles to basically help keep the decorative pot off of our desk. In case there's any moisture created by this decorative pot, I want to make sure it doesn't damage her wooden desk at work or any countertop. If you've got any potted plants at home, on a desk or on a kitchen surface, it's helpful to actually place marbles underneath it to help keep a space between the actual container and the surface it's resting on. So that's the reason for those 3 marbles at the bottom. And what we're going to do next is put the potted money plant within the container like so. And now again, assuming we've waited an hour from the time we've mixed the Ivory Organic 6 macros fertilizers, what we're going to do is now we're going to water the base of the plant. All of the excess water is now going to be pooling within the decorative pot. And the instructions I left with Geraldine is when you water your plant in the morning, any of that excess water that's still remaining by the time you're done with work, make sure you dump that out. And then basically wait the number of days or even a week until you rewater it. Again, just checking to see what the pattern is with the plant and what it needs. What we're also going to do is we're going to come up here and do a foliar feed to the entire plant structure as well. And again, as we mentioned earlier, the leaves will be able to uptake a lot of those macro and micronutrients from the plant as well. And now let's get on to the next step. So the next thing we're going to do is apply the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard. It offers protection against damaging sunburn, insects, and rodents. And the specific value, if I can bring it closer to you, is again the protection against damaging sunburn, insects, and rodents. It's also registered material for use in organic agriculture. And the way it works is it's got these 7 natural garden oils, which will basically protect all of these exposed pruned areas, just as a rose prune seal or other tree prune seal products would otherwise work, basically keeping again beetles, termites, and other disease from entering these exposed ends until the branches grow large enough that those wounds are naturally healed over. So what we're going to do is basically use the products that's available in colors white, brown, and green. And today I'm basically going to sneak our product because these branches are already brown in color, so we're going to be using the Ivory Organics color brown, and we're simply going to brush those tips sealed with the product. So you'll see how it goes basically from this dark black color, and now it's actually going to look a little bit more natural looking and offer the protection to keep disease from entering all of those wound areas. If I was using a tar or paint product, and you can see as I was brushing it, it's dripping down in the soil, but tar and paint are designed to last forever. If I put paint on my house, 100 years later, there's still going to be paint on my house. If I put it on my tree, within 1 to 2 years, all that paint's going to end up in the soil pretty much indefinitely. So this is a healthier alternative for basically protecting and guarding basically wounds, or if we're also moving this plant from an indoor to an outdoor area, that entire tree trunk that's exposed to too much light is susceptible to 1st, 2nd, and even 3rd degree burns, where the bark will crack, exposing that cambium tissue that'll dry out and expose the underlying supporting wood structure. So again, these are some of the benefits of whitewashing your plant. And again, just to repeat it, in the summer sunburn, in the winter it offers insulation from sun scald. And there's a whole list of benefits, but let's just stick specifically to this plant. We've just used the Ivory Organics products to seal all of those pruned surfaces. What we're also going to do is the same pint-sized can can make 5 gallons of the Ivory Organics ready-to-use spray product, which also serves as an anti-transparent by spraying it over the entire plant. As you saw, we disrupted the entire root system, both at the bottom as well as the sides, and we even pruned some of the branches. What will help the plant in the transfer and with what we did is to basically use the 3-in-1 Plant Guard as an anti-transparent, basically helping the plant better retain the moisture within the plant. And you can preferably, we just did a foliar feed, it would be ideal to allow the product to dry into the plant first. Or if you're using the whitewash protection as a foliar, again, you can allow it to dry and then do the foliar nutritional spray through the product, as well as the product, when sprayed on the leaves, will last an average of 3 to 9 months. So it offers a long protection. An application in the spring will go through the summer. If there's any new growth, and again, this is for your plants that are outdoors, all of that exposed extra young growth to extremes in weather can be protected again by whitewashing the entire plant structure. And again, this is an all organic way of doing it, something you would never do with a latex or tar-based product, as again, those would trap the pores and basically cause more harm than good to the plant. So what we're gonna do next is simply spray the plant now with the Ivory Organics 3-in-1 Plant Guard to offer that plant the protection as an anti-transpirant. This will help the plant better retain moisture. If by tomorrow or the day after you notice that the plant is further stressed, again due to the transplant, what we can do is reduce the surface area that the plant is otherwise losing moisture by removing some of the leaves. For example, over here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaf petals. I could simply prune one out like so, and that would reduce the surface area. In addition to removing, maybe every other leaf within the plant structure, you can also cut it in half, which I'm not going to do right now. I can see that the owner of the plant is stressing out right now. But again, if you see that the plant is stressing, these are ways to basically get it back in check, as anything that's happened below the ground. And this is one of our planting tips from a couple weeks ago. When you root prune the plant, you got to balance also the plant structure above the ground. So whatever you've taken away below, you need to take away above to compensate for that stress that was created below the ground. So it's a good practice to repot your plants every 3 to 5 years. It'll create a much healthier, happier, and longer lasting plant by doing that. And even if it goes right back into the same original container, it doesn't necessarily need to be a larger container size as we did today, but this plant is growing and we're going to support that growth right now by staking it. So now the last thing, Geraldine shared with us that the plant is leaning. And again, one of the good practices to have with a plant, especially a house plant, is it'll always reach for the light. So it would be a good practice every day or every few days to basically rotate it so that the plant structure is more in an upright position. But what we're going to do right now is correct it simply by using a bamboo stake that we're going to insert very carefully into the container, and we're just going to wiggle that in alongside the roots. And then when it comes to your twine, we're going to now secure the twine against the stake, and you never want to tie a knot against the plant, as that'll be constricting to the underlying cambium tissues. The cambium tissues underlie the bark, and you want to make sure that you don't constrict the cambium tissues as the waters and the sugars and all the nutrients pass through those cambium layers. So what we're going to do again is secure the knot against the stake like so, and then you're going to simply wrap the plant structure loosely against the stake, and you can see already how more upright the plant is than it was when we first started. And again, we're being careful as we're tying the knot to secure the knot against the stake. If I can turn this around, we can do this together, and not securing the knot against the tree trunk. And we're done. We got a brand new money plant in a brand new container and a nice decorative pot, and it's ready for many more years of success in Geraldine's office. Wish you the best of luck. So now that we've pretty much concluded, I've found one more issue. And as we're discussing this, we've noticed that this weaker of the 4 branches is never going to have a chance at success. And I just explained to Geraldine that there's a high likelihood that this particular little branch is going to end up dying back because it's stuck in the canopy of these other healthier branches. And the only way to give this little guy a chance, if the goal is to have this 4 braided instead of a 3 braided, and it was once a 5 braided money plant, in order to give it a chance, we're going to have to open the canopy to make sure that this little branch has fair access to light Otherwise, it's going to get smothered by these other healthier leaves, which are going to fuel these other branches, and to the detriment of this weaker of the 4 branches. In order to accomplish this, we're simply going to do a leaf prune. We're not pruning any of the branches. Geraldine gave me permission to cut the plant branches and basically reduce the height. That would be another fair way to bring it down, but a less dramatic way would be simply to prune the leaves that are going over this weaker of the 4 branches. So what we're going to do is simply prune a couple of these leaves out. You can see this large one was basically blocking the light from this one. Here's another large leaf that's also blocking the light as well. And here's the third and last one I'll take out. And now you can see that as the light within the office is coming through the money plant, this little guy now has a fair shot at success and competing to become one of the equal 4 branches within this money plant structure. So I hope you found this twilight repotting experience helpful and educational. And again, what an honor and a privilege to be here with Geraldine at POV Pool. If you found this informative and educational, be sure to give us a thumbs up. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe down below. And for those of you that have already subscribed, hit that push bell notification to get notification as soon as a new video is released. And also, just as Ivory Organics has done, be sure to also do the same with POV Pool on YouTube as well. Ivory Organics is a subscriber. We follow and love billiards. And what's that slogan you've shared with me before as well?
Never miss a shot on POV Pool.
Never miss a shot with POV Pool. And from Ivory Organics, wishing you all happy gardening. 4, 5 leaf petals, I could simply prune 1 out like so, and that would reduce the surface area. Something else I can also do, you're making me laugh, I won't cut it anymore.
I mean, pick this one that's like yellow.
We need this one to be good because it needs everything it's got.
Like
I picked a big
ones.
healthy one. I did it on purpose.